Hey guys, welcome to Why We Serve with Benjamin. Before we start, I just want to go over some stuff. I know I promised a new episode by Monday, and I know I really don't have a lot of listeners, but I don't want to let you guys down, so I'm sorry about that. I had a crazy chaotic week this past week. Um, one of my interviews kind of fell through, so I got thankfully Matthias here that I'm about to interview. He was really able to work with me and stuff, especially with my schedule. For those that are close to me, know my schedule is pretty complicated. For those that don't, my schedule is complicated. So I'm I'm really happy to be. I got this done, and I will have it out hopefully in the morning. Also, I got this new recording equipment now to where hopefully it sounds pretty cool. Matthias was a remote caller, right? So I had my phone using it with my new recording equipment. I hope it sounds as good as I think it does. Just let me know, guys. And again, if you're interested in talking, if you're interested in sending me a request, like, and if you're interested in more than just this, like, let me know. I'm more than willing to talk about it. So I appreciate the listeners and enjoy the pod. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to Why We Serve with Benjamin Lake. I'm back at it again. Um, with me this week, I got actually my first veteran guest on Matthias Carter. What's going on, Matthias? How you doing?
Hey Benjamin, I'm great. Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate it. We're doing a remote one for the first time. You actually you served Army, and we actually are going to get into it later, but you went on to work with veteran groups and you wrote a children's book, right?
Correct?
Yeah. So we're going to kind of dive into all those things. Um, just to get us started, man. Let's go back. Can you kind of walk me through your childhood experience basically? How old were you when you joined?
Yeah, I joined right out of high school, so I knew I was going to join. I did the delayed entry program when I was a sophomore in high school. Um, I didn't think college was for me at the time, and I knew I wanted to be in the military. So I went to the recruiter when I was younger and kind of told them I'm going to join anyways, to be honest. And I was lucky enough to have a recruiter um, that kind of just gave me exactly how it was going to be. He made it seem like it was going to be harder than it was, but he was a ranger, so I guess his experience was probably a little different than mine.
Yeah.
But
At least he was honest
but no,
with you. You
it was
don't
for
usually
me.
get that.
Yeah, you don't know. Normally, you get a lot of people that maybe have been told the wrong thing or misled or what have you. But um, but he worked with me. We worked out together, got ready for the military. So basic training was kind of awesome. I don't know. I loved it. I could have probably done basic training for 4 years. I absolutely loved it. Um,
what
I liked getting smoked.
if I could back up just a little bit, Matthias, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Um what led you to that decision to actually join? You said you had it in your mind already. Was it a family legacy or just like a I you got super pumped and motivated when you were in high school and stuff?
Yeah, so I think a couple different things. So my grandpa was in the Navy, and then he went Army, and he spent 18 years in the military, and then my father joined. And while I was in delayed entry program, my sister actually joined as well, and she went to Fort Leonard Wood. And she was a military police investigator, so she did that. So I've had some good role models in my life that were all military, and I saw the benefit. But then also, I just wasn't ready for college. So it was more of I'm not ready for college. This is going to help me kind of grow up. And I joined a month before 9/11 happened.
Oh wow. Oh wow. That is
So that was a little before, everyone else that joined afterward. Obviously, it probably means a little bit different. Not
right.
saying I wouldn't have joined, but it would have meant a little, something a little
Obviously,
different than
there's
just I'm not ready for college. You
yeah,
know.
there was so much more at stake, when you joined at that point. Like after that mark. So I think that's interesting that like you had the intestinal like worth to say, I am not ready for college. I think I want to do something different that's gonna actually better me for those experiences. Because a lot of people are just like, I don't want to go to college. I'm gonna just join the army, and um, that can be kind of a kick in the pants to people, or like they're like, I don't want to go do regular stuff. So that's a very interesting way to pick. And then so you get ready to go off, and you picked what MOS or
I
job?
was a 31 Romeo back then before they changed to 29 Quebec. So I was a multi-channel transmission systems operator. So when I went in there, I took the ASVAB test. I did it in 45 minutes. I walked out. I figured I would just take it really quick, and if I didn't score high enough, he said I could take it as many times as I wanted. I ended up only missing a couple of points,
Yeah,
so I could have been whatever I wanted.
yeah.
They asked what I wanted, and I probably was the recruiter's favorite person that day because I said, you know what, I don't care, just whatever. And they were like, what? And they were like, what do you want to do when you get out? And I said, I don't know, something with computers. So they gave me a job that had nothing to do with computers. So as a multi-channel transmission systems operator, I was connected to infantry units to set up networks and supply backup, like with communications, so that they could call for backup. I supplied the communications. I put up the antennas and things like that.
Yeah, cool. So you're like a kind of like a commo guy, but more of a
Yep,
on the
it was
ground
commo.
commo.
Yeah,
Yeah, on the ground commo
yeah.
guy.
Back in the day, they used to call them cable dogs.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in a signal unit actually.
Oh, okay.
I think they're 25 Limas now.
Yeah, yeah.
We're getting
25
into
Quebec is what I was.
yeah, we're getting into baseball right now, but like that's awesome, man. That's an unappreciated job. For those that don't know what we're talking about, he laid like cable lines down so that people could communicate around everywhere. He kind of explained that, but I seen it now. Everything is fiber, and that's like a lot of what they do is build up that infrastructure for people that, when you get your internet, that's who's laying it down for you, and it's a hard ass job. It's not fun.
Yeah, and it was rewarding. You didn't really get to see it all the time, but you heard about it. When I was in Iraq, and I know we'll get to it, but when I was in Iraq, on top of a mountain on the border of Syria, we were supporting the 101st Airborne, and before we set up, they were getting attacked every day. And once we set up, the entire 4 months I was on top of the mountain, they didn't get attacked once
Oh,
because every
nice.
time they saw something, they were able to call in helicopter support, and they took care of the situation really fast.
Yeah. Um,
So that kind of stuff made my day, knowing that we saved a lot of lives just setting it up, even though we didn't get to see it.
yeah, I talk about it a lot. Purpose. Purpose makes me feel so good when you have a job and you know it's causing um an influence in others and a positive impact. That is just like such a great feeling, you know. Um, when you went through you go through basic. You said it wasn't terrible for you necessarily because your recruiter kind of helped you get ready for it, but through that and through AIT, would you say your attitude and like motivation to be in the army was uh like going up or going down? Like you were because sometimes you realize the bullshit a little bit through and you're like, man, this isn't what I pictured. But then sometimes there's like moments where you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. I can't wait to actually do this kind of stuff.
Man, I loved basic. I absolutely loved it. I used to be a troublemaker. I was a smart mouth, and because of that, the drill sergeants loved it. They used to smoke me all the time, and I could knock out 100 push-ups in one sitting. So they would be like, "Carter, get over here," and they would just like show me off and things like that. But the more I got in trouble, the better shape I got. So I appreciated that stuff, and I really liked basic because you really didn't have to think for yourself. It's kind of calming when you don't have to think what you have to do. You're being told what to do all the time. AIT was getting a little further away from that. I got in the best shape of my life in AIT, because we worked out harder, but you also got a little more rope to hang yourself in that sense of, like you were able to go out because
Oh
we had a long
yeah.
AIT. Like my AIT was like 20 something weeks. So we had a long AIT. So we were able to go to town and, get in trouble during the weekends and things like that. So that's when, the bad habits started forming in the military.
Yeah. It's so funny because like now I'm a drill sergeant over here at Fort Leonard Wood for RAIT, but when I went through, there's such chaos going on, and I was the type to keep my head down kind of. I didn't like to do crazy stuff, but you heard about it or saw it, and
Mhm.
now the kids that go through are like, why are you guys so strict on us? Like why is everybody like this? And I go, you guys have no idea the chaos that reigned for like the past 40 years in AITs. it's just it's just crazy like some of the stuff people do, but like those make the best stories, but it is so crazy sometimes what's going on.
Oh, agreed, for sure.
Yeah. Um so you get out of there, you're ready to go. You love it and stuff. You're a little ready to go. What's your first duty station?
Darmstadt, Germany. So after I went to basic at Fort Knox, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for my training, and then they shipped me off to Germany as my first duty station. So I
Mhm.
spent about a year and a half in Germany before I went to Iraq.
Oh wow, okay. So at least you got a bit of training and cohesion, I guess, with the unit.
Yeah, it
Or
was a little weird. It was one of those things where as soon as you walk in there, they said everything you learned during AIT. I was like, yes. They were like, forget it.
oh yeah,
We're gonna
yeah,
teach you how to do it our way. And just seeing the way that they did it, AIT was kind of a waste of time because we didn't do any of the stuff the way we learned it in school for sure. We learned how to do it on the fly.
yeah. That
So,
that on the job training though, sometimes it's better. Like you realize you're like, I don't need all this bullshit. Like there's
oh,
a
for
lot
sure.
easier ways to do stuff. So you get there. Um, you this is in 2001 or two.
Two.
So you're there. Afghanistan's kicked off. Um, what like what's going through your head, man? What's like
So
that's scary.
So I didn't know anything about Afghanistan. We weren't told anything of what was going on.
Yeah.
At least in Germany, I didn't know anything that was going on. The first time we heard about anything was that we were going to be going over to Iraq. That was a little weird trying to get ready for that because, Germany, all the trees are numbered and you're not allowed to dig and you're not allowed to blow things up. And so
Oh.
we had to go to Poland for all our training to go to Iraq. So we went to Poland in a very cold time to get ready to go to Iraq. It was like the winter in Poland where you could see your breath, like when you're doing stand to and stand down,
Yeah, yeah.
2 hours before and 2 hours after,
Nightmare. Nightmare.
you're watching the heat rise from the ground. It was so cold.
Oh.
And I've never been that cold in my life. And so we were in Poland in the winter getting ready to train to go to the desert, which made absolutely no sense. But it was crazy because right before we left, they wanted to keep it kind of secret when we were leaving. So they
Mhm.
had everything packed. We only had a couple of bags on us. Everything else was already been packed away in big shelters, and they kept in the middle of the night. They would tell you, "Hey, everyone, meet in the gymnasium," and we'd get our bags and go there. And they'd be like, "Oh, it's just practice. It's just practice," because they didn't want to tell us when we were leaving.
Yeah, the real
So
ops like operational security like it was kind of legit back then cuz they were still trying to keep
yeah,
everything quiet.
oh, for sure. And so
Jeez.
finally, one night they called us in and it was go time. And the reason I think they did that as well was that they didn't want people to run. And we had my roommate actually, he ran. He dropped his stuff and just grabbed a taxi and took
What?
off. I don't know where he went. I don't know if he was ever caught, but he left. And so
That's
they were really worried
crazy.
about that. And it was crazy. And trying to explain this to civilians is really funny that we get in line and we're getting the inoculations, all the vaccines, inoculations, all that stuff. And they were taking people out of the line and teaching them how to use one of those. inoculation guns or the needle guns or whatever,
Oh yeah,
teaching them how
yeah.
to do it. And you would ask the person when you get up to the front, you would say, "What are you about? What are you giving me?" And they were like, "I don't know. I'm a cook." So I mean,
Yeah.
we had anthrax vaccines, we had smallpox vaccines, we had all these different vaccines, and half the time we didn't even know we were getting. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a little surreal. It was a little surreal, like just getting on the buses and then going to the airport and getting on a commercial flight, like a two-story commercial flight with regular um, flight attendants. When you're all with your gear on and everything else, it was weird. It
Yeah.
was weird.
Jeez, it's trippy. And it's weird to think like, you hear about that initial invasion of like not a lot of people know about that, but then Iraq, was such a profound invasion that it's just like, damn, and then you're like at the forefront of this and there's still like hesitancy and chaos swirling around our operations to it. I mean, that's just like it's a lot to take in, because I think a lot of people think of these, especially you, right? You're one of those initial invasion um, Iraq war vets.
Yeah,
That
we just celebrated the 20th year. We crossed over 20 years ago, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean that's remarkable, right? Good and bad, right? Take it for what it's worth. I'm not here to dive into politics, but like,
Yeah.
good or bad, amazing, but like um to be at the forefront of that is just so intense and heavy. And you're like so calm hearing about it, but then you hear about you think everybody thinks of those vets as like these steadfast, everything was going right. We were a hard charging army, but then you also hear about like what you were saying. There's still people scared, and we're still like not 100% on what the plan is because we keep changing ship out dates and what we're gonna do and all that stuff. It's just
Oh, we were so ill
yeah.
prepared. It was crazy. I had a flak vest that it wasn't even it didn't have sappy plates, anything. I had the flak vest with
Oh, the chicken vest, right? It
Vel
was yeah,
Velcro, yeah, Velcro
yeah.
that didn't even work. My whole chest in the middle was open. We didn't have masks. We didn't have masks. We didn't have goggles. We didn't have enough night vision goggles for every single person. I had to share one with my driver. One of my first stories when mortars are coming in, and I run out of my truck to the other side and I look through night vision goggles. Not only are mortars coming in, there are Russian tanks pointed at us, and I mean just to be 19 years old and look at a tank pointed at you is pretty surreal.
Yeah, I mean that's a bigger experience than most people will in their life. That's how long were you there for?
So we crossed over for the initial invasion, and I left a couple days before Christmas. So I was there right when stop loss happened.
Oh yeah.
So they did a stop loss, and they made everyone stay for an extra 6 months. For some reason, about four of us still had orders that went through, and they sent us back to Germany in order to go back to different duty stations, which were going to go back to Iraq. So I went to
Jeez.
Germany, and then I got sent to Fort Hood. I was going to go to First Cav. I ended up moving over to Fourth ID, but First Cav went right back and took over after 101st.
Oh my gosh. So you're just just on rotation at that point, just going back again.
And it was
It
crazy because it wasn't normal, because for me at least, my almost and my entire 4 years was overseas, like
yeah.
it I didn't really get to experience how the United States military was, how it was to be in the United States. So the last year of my time in, I got to be at Fort Hood, which was eye opening, and
Yeah.
so I
That's
won't go into that, but
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I loved being in Germany for sure. I mean, the camaraderie with the people there, and my unit over there, and just it was a lot of fun being 18 to 20 in Germany for
I'm
sure.
sure. I'm sure. And that's crazy too. You were talking about just a little side note because it's funny because Fourth ID you were talking about at Hood because they're not even there anymore. They moved. It's just so, and then it's crazy that you jumped right back. What was the gap between your first and second deployment?
So I didn't go over a second time. So I was supposed to, and they ended up
Oh, and
moving
that
me from
okay.
first cav to fourth ID.
Oh, okay.
So, but it would have been 2 months. It would
Kind
have
of a
been two
blood.
months in
Yeah,
between.
see, that's too fast anyway, man. That's such a quick turn. I mean,
That's
it's
why.
war,
Yeah,
but
a sergeant major met me, and he said, where are you going, soldier?" And I said, "First cav." He said, "You ready to go to war?" And I said, "I just came back from there." And he was like, "Why are you going again?" He was like, "Come see me in my office." And I told him, I said, "Sergeant Major, I don't mind going again. Like, it's my duty. That's fine. But I don't know if I want to reenlist or not. And I haven't experienced the Army the way that is in the United States. So I would love the opportunity to." And so he made some decisions and ended up moving me over to fourth ID. So
yeah.
um, yeah.
That's a good sergeant major right there, because back then it could have went either way. There could have been one that
Oh, for sure.
just said frickin' who or something and move on, but that dude actually
Oh
took
yeah.
time aside, and actually helped you out. So that's good. What did you think of your last bit of time there, and what really caused you not to reenlist?
So I got hurt. I got hurt in Iraq. So I had some lung issues. It was before the PAC deck and all that stuff. So when I came back, I was coughing up blood and sand for a little bit, and I went to the ER a handful of times because I didn't know what was going on. I ended
Yeah,
up having some respiratory issues and some other stuff going on, and they put me on some profiles and told me not to run, not to do this and that. And back then, being young and stupid. I had a lot of bad habits, but a lot of us had a lot of bad habits, and then we would work out like crazy, and it kind of you always looked like you were in good shape, even though inside you probably weren't in good shape.
yeah,
And so that's what happened. I stopped working out, and I gained a lot of weight. And it ended up being that a captain that was in charge of my med board was sitting on my paperwork. And long story short, it went to DC, all the way back from DC to Fort Hood from my representative in Illinois to look into it. And they forced him into retirement because he was sitting on like 15 soldiers' paperwork because he would rather try to kick them out for tape
yeah.
versus get them out for a med board. So
What in the hell?
basically the commander of fourth ID had me in his office and he was like, "We can get you med boarded, but you have to stay in for an extra 6 months." And at the time I was kind of fed up. I was young, I was dumb, I didn't really have any person to guide me or lead me in the right direction or tell me I'm making a bad mistake. And now I do that now for people. I advocate and I help them out mentally, and then also with benefits and things like that as much as I can. And so I didn't have anybody. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to deal with the VA. So now I'm kicking myself, but you
Man,
can't go back. You can't unbreak an egg. So it is what it
yeah.
is.
That fucking sucks, man. That you just it's stories like that where you hear, these people people have obvious symptoms and signs and stuff, and now, I'm sure, it's been well, not exactly 20 years, probably 18, but still, I'm sure you have long-lasting effects from that stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm 100%
Y-
disabled through the VA.
Right. So it's like, but we can't do a med board, What what
Right.
what are we talking about? Oh, so did that, to finish out that contract and stuff, did it just leave you with a real salty taste, or were you still like,
I was ready to get out. And what's
you
crazy
know,
is, going in, my mentality going in as a 17-year-old when my parents signed me over, I knew I wasn't ready for college. I knew I wasn't ready to focus. I was lazy. Like I viewed school as a social thing, not an actually care about my grades or my future. When I got
mm,
out of the service, I started college 2 weeks later. And from then on, I was National Honor Society. I kicked ass. And
that's
you know, I
awesome.
have I have 3 degrees now. I've got my bachelor's, and then I have an MBA, and then I went back to school to get a master's in education and biology.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't use any of them, but but I collect them.
Yeah.
But
Education's good though, man, regardless, It's that's and the fact that you had the ability to, after all the shit, after all the stuff you went through, you were still able to accomplish all that, That's victory
yeah,
in and
it's
of
crazy,
itself.
Benjamin, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the military. And if my son ever wanted to go in, or anybody I know, I never talk bad about the military because if you add up all the good days and you add up all the bad days, the good's gonna outweigh the bad all day. And then on top of it, the military taught me that I I personally can do anything I set my mind to.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing that as a person is an awesome feeling. Just knowing that if you want to do something, you could do it. And you've been tested and you've made it. And just that kind of stuff you can't just get by just going to college and starting a job. I feel like, that's like you had to go through some stuff to realize that about yourself.
Yeah, I think the army, whatever military in general does best is force people to make decisions, personal and professional. Now, is it like great all the time? No. A lot of time it is I don't want to make a decision, and then it's a boot to your face, pushing you in the concrete, saying you're gonna make a decision, and you don't want to, but you ended up doing that. So then, in real lifetime, when you come up with something that's hard in your life, you are able to conquer that stress, and you can actually make a competent decision, good or bad, you know, but you have that ability now. A lot of people in the civilian world just like frankly don't have that ability anymore. Uh, the stress that military people go through, whether it's a deployment, regular work life, or training, whatever, that really does prepare you to be a step ahead in the decision making process in the real world. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. What
And then when I started college too, I didn't know I had PTSD. I thought I was having some issues focusing. I thought maybe I had ADHD, and I went to the doctor, and they started asking me questions. And they were like, "When you drive at night, do you see halos around the lights?" They were like, "Tell me how you sleep at night." I said, "I sleep like everyone else. I sleep with my clothes on top of my bed," because just coming from going to war and then, kind of staying on my own a little bit and then going right into college, like that was the norm for me.
mm-hmm.
So it was 2005 when I started getting help or tried to start getting help for PTSD and for all that.
what
And it's been an uphill battle for sure.
what if you don't mind me asking, what led you to get help like that?
I didn't know I had PTSD. I thought I had ADHD because I had
Mm-hmm.
a hard time focusing, even though I
Just
tried
asking about
everything I
that.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had
Okay.
a hard time focusing. And when they started asking me questions and asking me how I sleep at night, and I was like, they were like, "Tell me your routine to go to sleep." And I said, "Well, I check the door a couple of times. I check my windows. I sleep on top of my bed. I normally kept something, so it was like on my door. And then if somebody tried to open my door, it would kind of make a bang
Mm-hmm.
because I lived with a couple of people. So there were a lot of things that at the time I thought were totally normal, but looking back at it in hindsight, like hypervigilance, hyperarousal, like there were a lot of signs that I had PTSD and I just didn't pick up on it. And going from the military where there's a lot of people that have, let's say, drinking issues,
Mm-hmm.
and then going straight into college where they also drink a
Have
lot.
drink. Yeah, have
And
drinking issues, man. Yeah.
yeah,
I
like
went. Yeah.
it's easy to avoid. Avoidance is the biggest thing when you have mental illness. When you're going through something mentally, avoidance is the biggest thing. So when you're surrounded by people that drink, it looks totally normal that you're just having a good time when you might be doing it so you don't think about what you've been through. And I think that was another thing for me, was using that as a crutch so I didn't have to face what was going on inside.
Yeah. That's a harsh reality, man. I'm glad that you were able to catch it early on. Do
Oh, it
you?
took years, man. It took a long
Well,
time for me to figure out what was
yeah, but
going on.
you took steps forward, man, and that's more than a lot of people do. I actually, not to take this interview away from you. One of my NCOs um, I had him from. I didn't directly have him, but I worked with him in 2016 and 2017. He always had a couple demons because he was a Marine in the initial push to Iraq and stuff. He did that, and then he switched to Army, and he always had demons when I worked with him, and we tried to talk to him. He's always kind of closed off and stuff. Um, flash forward 5 years, now I'm here on my Facebook a week or two ago. I see on his Facebook unexpectedly passed away. And you're just like, man, like some people just like, it's not to say that they won't get help or anything. It's that they can't get help because they cannot get through that initial push of, I need to go see somebody, or I'm not finding enough people to help me. And it sucks, man. It fucking
I
sucks.
think the most important thing too are things like what you're doing podcasts, getting it out there. Because one of the things we do at my job, and I know we really haven't talked about what I do for a living yet, but as an outreach coordinator for a nonprofit that helps veterans and their families with PTSD, we will go and speak to high schools, and we'll go and speak to like different places. And just an example, when we go to a high school, just a couple of veterans, combat vets, go in there and we start talking about mental health and the importance of getting help. The amount of students that go and get help with their counselors and things like that after we go is like skyrocketed. And
Really?
it's sometimes you have to see somebody that you view as strong, willing to be vulnerable in order for you to also get some help.
Yeah.
For me, that point that started me on the track for getting help was my dad's cousin was in Vietnam, and he's like my dad's brother basically. They were close growing up, and when he got back from Vietnam, he was a recluse. Like he lives on a large piece of land in Minnesota, and he
Oh,
has a long
wow.
beard, and he grows his own food. He does everything. He keeps to himself. He never got help. He had a lot of demons, and he had a rough time in Vietnam, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, when I got back, I went to talk to him, and he said, "If I can give you any advice, it would be talk to somebody." And from that day on, he also went and talked to somebody.
That's
So he
awesome.
showed me by example, after not talking about Vietnam for like 30 years, he went and started getting help. And then I also went and started trying to get help. It's hard because I think, especially when you go to get help, there's so many different ways to get help. Like it's kind of like learning in school. Like you and I might learn totally different, right? And you and I might heal totally different. We might need something completely different or need a different modality in order to get what we need in order to heal. And it depends. For me, it was hard. Like I kept giving up because I tried prolonged exposure as my first time in, which I don't know if you've been through that, but it's basically talking about the worst times in your life and then like kind of recording yourself and then listening to it over and over and over. And
I've
that was
never
way
done
too
that, and
hard for me.
I do not want to do that, man. That sounds,
The prolonged
that's
exposure
a
for
lot.
me is terrible. I don't like it. I haven't met anybody that likes it, but I mean, I guess I can see why it works because it kind of numbs you to it, but I don't like that. I did CBT, which was the best one for me up
Cognitive
until
behavioral
recently.
therapy, right?
Yep, yep. So basically, you never talk about your trauma, though. You talk about how your trauma affects your day-to-day life now. So I might be driving through an alley and then see something in the alley that reminds me of an IED, and then in my head, after being going through CBT, kind of behavioral therapy, I might say, what's the likelihood that that's a bomb? Probably very, very low, especially in the suburbs of Illinois. Like it's probably not very high, and kind of talking to yourself like that, but it still doesn't deal with the trauma. So I showed my ex-wife I was like, you want to know how it feels to be me? And she was like, yeah. So we're driving through an alley. I see something. I said, I know that that's not a bomb because I've been through therapy for so many years. I know that's not a bomb, but feel my pulse. And my pulse was racing. And she was like, holy cow. And I said, what's crazy is like your brain knows it's not, but your instincts, your inside, the
Yeah.
thing that saved you while you were at war, that feeling, like doesn't matter if your brain knows it's not true because PTSD is just the normal response to an abnormal situation. And it wasn't until I understood that I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And it's not that we were in the wrong. We had the right like feelings, reactions, and all that stuff for what was going on. But now we have the same reactions, and we're just in a different place, and it doesn't make sense anymore. And that's the weird part. But um, if you don't mind, I'd love to go into what I do because I'd love to talk about what I'm doing now with getting help because I think it's pertinent and it's a good story. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, man. I just want to point out, like, that therapy stuff. It's so important, man. Because like I've been myself, and I just think um, there's not a shoe that fits everybody, but there are helpful tools out there for that stuff. I keep bringing up mental health in like almost every episode, and it's just because it is so important. So I'm glad you're able to discuss that, and actually, you work directly with veterans dealing with that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, let's really dive into like what you got out and you went through all this school, but what's your job now? Because I kind of get it. I kind of knew you just work with vets. I don't really get the full scope of it.
Yeah, so after the military, I tried to find my passion and I really didn't find it. I got into working, I got into banking and I moved up in banking and I was a VP. I really didn't like my life. The money was good, but like it was one of those things where you had a facade, that fake face where you always had to pretend like you were in a good mood. Everyone thought you were in a good mood,
Yeah,
but you can never be yourself because, being in a good mood isn't realistic all the time. And I wasn't I wasn't getting help at the time, so I was struggling at the time. Well, so I ended up I got a call from a executive director at a nonprofit organization that helps veterans that are at risk of being homeless or homeless. And she said, "Would you ever consider working with veterans?" And I said, "You know what? I've always wanted to. Let's do it." And I interviewed, and they loved me. And I wasn't a clinician, but they said, normally this job is for clinicians, but we're going to give you a chance. And I was able to get on the level with a lot of the vets, and talk about my own PTSD, my own struggles, and all that stuff. And I thought I was doing okay at the time because I've gone through programs and things like that. Well, we ended up having 4 suicides in 1 year
damn.
on my caseload. And then one of my friends that served in Iraq with me took his own life. And that was kind of the straw for me.
Yeah,
And I reached out to the VA and I said, I need help. I need an outpatient treatment. I need something. I'm in a dark place. And they were 2 months behind on doing an intake. So I reached
damn,
out to yeah, it sucks, man. Now this 2023, they're three months behind.
bro.
And
But
so,
I just want to point this out too. And this is why I push the other options, because active duty, they're so booked out, man. I try to schedule I go to behavioral health every now and then. And when I try to schedule an appointment, they say 1 or 2 months. But then a trainee can go within a week or two, or even that day if they need to. And it's just, like we can go if we need to that day, but it's either you go today in an emergency or in a month to 2 months. And you're like, dude, like,
wow.
what? I don't know. I digress, but continue, man. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out. It sucks.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And so I reached out to outreach coordinator, which she was in the job that I'm in now. Now she's my boss, and she was a Marine. She did 3 tours. I reached out to her, and I really didn't know too much about Road Home program, and that's where I work. And I said, I need to talk to somebody like now. And she was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And within an hour, I got an intake. And by the next day, I started talking to somebody. And that saved my
Awesome.
life. So,
Awesome.
what I ended up doing, Benjamin, when they opened that position up, I jumped on board because I saw how it saved me. I saw the validity in what they do. And so I wanted to make sure that I help other brothers and sisters in arms.
For
So
sure.
my organization is called Road Home Program at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, or just the Road Home Program. And this organization, they help active duty military, veterans, they help pretty much everybody. If you've ever worn a uniform for a day, they will help you. And it's no cost mental health care. So they'll fly you out from anywhere in the world to Chicago for a 2 week intensive outpatient program. And it's exactly what I was kind of telling you earlier. Like everybody learns different, everyone heals different. So
Mhm.
what they do is they do a whole bunch of different things. They do individual therapy, group therapy. They do mindfulness, which I didn't even know what mindfulness was. And I said, I apologize for my ignorance, but I don't know what mindfulness is. Can you explain that? And they said, well, what we've learned is a lot of a lot of service members care a lot about other people, but they don't care too much about themselves. And if that wasn't a huge light bulb that just went off in my brain, I couldn't. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
because I thought that was
Oh,
just
because
me.
it
But
hits
I
home.
literally, oh my gosh, I would literally give my shirt off my back to somebody that needs it. But if somebody was like, when was the last time you did something for yourself? I wouldn't be able to tell you. Because
Or
like,
you get guilty if you do something for yourself. You
oh, for sure,
feel guilty
for
about it.
sure.
Yeah.
So that was they do mindfulness, they do yoga, they do art therapy, which is beautiful. What they end up doing is they give a plaster mask to the service members that go in their program, and the outside they say, depict how you think society sees you, and then on the inside, how do you see yourself? And that moved me when I saw this place when I was interviewing. They showed me it. I was like, wow, because sometimes words escape you. If it was so easy to just be honest and tell everyone your feelings, then there would be no greeting cards out there. There would all be blank cards and people would just write whatever they feel, right? It's easier for someone else to kind of say what they've been through and then you just to read it and be like, wow, that's exactly how I feel. And that's how I felt when I walked through this art program. They allow them to like burn them, break them, throw them away, give them
Wow.
away, donate them, whatever they want. And a lot of them donate them back to us. And
Yeah.
we end up having a traveling art gallery that we take to colleges and things like that. And so that people can see, kind of inside the mind of a service member or a veteran or
I
active
love
duty
that,
or
man.
whomever.
I love that.
And they offer acupuncture, they offer sleep hygiene, they offer everything.
Do they
And
so I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry. This is amazing. This is an amazing program. Um did they offer it? Is it strictly for people with PTSD, or is it just for people with mental health that really need help? Guys, we're back from the break. Sorry about that. Matthias, you were just talking to us about your program. You were saying that it involves the invisible scars. That's kind of their program. It sounds like an amazing program. That is what I um that's the kind of stuff I like to hear about, is these intensive programs that actually take care of the person at that moment that's trying to get it done.
Yeah, Benjamin, this organization, we're one of four academic medical centers in the Warrior Care Network. So if Wounded Warrior Project, they have something called the Warrior Care Network, and they support four academic medical centers. And the academic medical centers, um, they they all do very similar things where they will have an intensive outpatient treatment, which are normally 2 weeks long, and ours is a little different. We have one specifically for combat, and then one for military sexual trauma, which is obviously rampant in the military.
Right. That's
Um,
that's
but
probably a
but
big one to push too.
Oh, for sure. And so what we do is we pay for everything. We pay for the flight, the food, the housing. We put them up in their own individual, basically efficiency apartment. It has like a little kitchen, a living room, a bathroom, a bedroom,
Wow.
and it's a 9 to 4 situation Monday through Friday. So they have the nights off to explore, and then also the weekends off. The first weekend off, and then they go home that next Friday during that 10-day period. It's the analogy I like to use is it's the difference of getting help. um it's like working out, right? If you work out twice a week, you might see results in a year, right? Or maybe
Uh-huh.
6 months or a year, depending. If you go to basic training, you're going to see results really quick,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's intense. It's intense. It's a lot of work. It's a struggle. It's hard. But at the end, you're like, I am so glad I did this.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what our program is. It's 6 months to a year's worth of intensive therapy in a 10-day time frame.
And it sounds like the
So
people working there, if they're like anything like you, they are passionate about what they're doing and they are trying to get the problems solved and stuff.
They are very, very good at what they do, and a lot of them are military or military friendly or have family, or there's a reason why they're there. They have that passion to help our brothers and sisters in arms, and it is a very, very good program. And the amount of active duty that we get is pretty substantial, and we don't talk to chain of command. Everything is, we're HIPAA compliant. We don't talk to anybody that the service member or veteran wouldn't want us to. We don't talk to VA doctors. That's one of the biggest complaints for active duty is they don't want their chain of command to know.
Yeah.
And then the biggest
Yep.
complaint for veterans is I don't want the VA to know because I don't want it to affect my benefits. And it's like,
Doesn't that suck,
we're
man?
not going
That
to tell
suck.
anybody anything.
Yeah, that sucks
Yeah,
that that's what it comes down to, though. For especially for veterans, it's,
for sure.
um, how about um this program? I will have the link in the bottom below here to the Home program, and I'll also have some. I always like to put 988 down there, that new hotline for military, as well as Military One Source for them free care for everybody. But I really want to push, Matthias's program here. For those that are truly needing some deep help that can't find it and want a strong program, this sounds like not the answer, but a answer to me. You know, um, I thank you for that, man.
Yeah,
Let's talk about your book, man. Let's put that out to the world. So, give me the title first, if you could.
yeah, it's called Instead of Sheep, a
And
soldier's way of explaining PTSD to his son.
okay,
So what ended up happening after I told you I started working for Road Home program? So what I do is that I am an outreach coordinator. So I cover a whole bunch of different states. But between me and the other four outreach coordinators, we cover the entire U.S.
okay,
So I reach out to the VAs, I reach out to active duty military installations, I reach out to for-profit and nonprofit organizations that talk about what we do and try to get referrals over to our organization. Just trying to help as many people as possible. That's my goal in life. It's my purpose, right?
yeah,
And one of the fun things I get to do is I get to go to military appreciation events and I get to set up a table. I'm sure you've seen it at resource fairs and things like that. People set up tables and give out like tchotchkes or like fidget spinners or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And
Just
so
little
that's what I
knickknacks.
do. Yeah, I give out brochures. I talk about what we do and how we can help, and if we can help you, let us know, sort of scenario. And so I was at the Chicago Wolves, which is a hockey team, right
Mm-hmm.
under the Blackhawks.
Oh,
And
okay,
so I was there actually last year, this time last year, and my son was with me because it was a family-friendly event. It was for military and their families, and he was on my shoulders and the lady that was working there said, "Have you seen the opening number?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And she was like, "Oh, we spent so much money on it. You got to take your son in there." So I go in there and they start blowing off fireworks. And I was blown away that they did that in a stadium full of veterans.
oh
And
man,
so I knew that was a trigger for me. So I turned around and I tried to leave.
yeah,
And my son goes, "No, Daddy, I want to watch it." And my son was 4, and I'm a dad first. He comes first.
right.
And so I just braced myself on the wall and kind of just took it, man. And I was
Jeez.
visibly upset. Every time I opened my eyes, another one went off and another one went off. And, so I went back into the area where our table was. And my boss, like I said, she's done 3 tours. She saw me and she ran over and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And she started talking to my son and getting his attention away from me. And so fast forward, the next day I kind of just was in the neighborhood of where my therapist is and I popped my head in and said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I had the worst panic attack I've had in 15 years." And I said, "I'm just glad my son didn't see me struggle." And I thought there was a good goal in life, man. I thought there was like an awesome goal. for my kids not to see me break down,
Yeah.
or
I
my
think
son
that's
to
what
not see
every
me
dad
break down.
wants. That's what every dad wants to, is to not feel
100%.
that.
But he made a face, and I said, "What?" And he's like, "Well, we'll unpack that next time you come in." And I was like, "Oh, no, that face means we need to talk about it now."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, you need to find an age appropriate way to explain what you're going through to your son." And this man has been absolutely amazing. He's helped me. We've done CPT, cognitive processing therapy. So this is the first time 6 months ago, or about a year ago, actually, was the first time that I started, right after this panic attack, was the first time I started talking about my trauma since 2003. And so this is
Wow.
the first time since in the 20 years almost that I started talking about my trauma. And it's been a bumpy road, man, trying to get to that point. But he's been amazing. So when he told me this, that he's like, you need to figure out an age appropriate way to explain this to your son. And I don't really like sharing war stories and all that stuff because I think it's a trigger for a lot of people, but I'll share this one a little bit. Like one of my intrusive thoughts is watching someone burn to death in front of me.
Hmm.
And, I was 19 years old and I'm about to be 40, and it's like that's bothered me for so many years. And I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to talk to a 4-year-old about this? How do you
Yeah.
explain the worst time in your life to a little kid? How do you explain hypervigilance, hyperarousal? How do you explain nightmares? How do you explain
Hmm.
panic attacks, like depression, anxiety? How do you explain fear to a little kid that's never experienced fear? My son, if sees something that looks like fun, he doesn't think I'm going to break my neck. He thinks I'm going to do
I'm
this.
gonna
It's going
do
to be
that.
fun.
Yep.
He doesn't understand fear. So how do I explain fear to a little kid? So it's like I wrote out this book, and then I had to water it down and water it down and water it down because you don't want to cause PTSD to little kids either. You don't want to freak them out.
Yeah.
Because they would be doing the opposite. The goal is to open up communication with my son. If I scared him or something, he wouldn't want to talk about it. So I reached out to one of my friends who also was in Iraq. We were in kindergarten together all the way through high school, and
Hmm.
he was with Third ID in the initial invasion, and I was attached to Third ID. So we experienced very similar things, and we had different jobs, but similar situations, similar events, whatever, similar feelings about how our trauma affects us now. So he jumped on board, and he's the illustrator, and he did an absolutely breathtaking job at illustrating. And I made it just for my son. I didn't make it to put out there for everyone else. I wanted something, and I think people that have PTSD can agree that when you have PTSD, it's normal to not feel like you're going to live like this very long life. It's normal to feel like you're not going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something tangible for my son to see that I loved him. And when I wrote this and it was illustrated and I finally had it in my hand, I looked at it and I was like, I can't keep this to myself. So I started putting it out there, letting people see it, and just having people that I view as strong, because I don't feel like a tough guy. I didn't join to be a ranger. I wasn't infantry. I wasn't like any of the normal tough guy MOSs. I went in there because I wasn't ready for college. Like what I went through was something like just a normal person went through something extraordinary sort of thing, not I didn't sign up for it, basically, you know what I mean? And so it was a little different. And I sent this out, and just hearing back from people that I looked up to that I thought were badasses telling me like, thank you so much. Like I didn't know how to put this on my kids' hearts. Like thank you for opening up communication and all that. It's heartwarming. So fast forward 1 year. So this weekend is the 1 year of when this happened to me at the Chicago Wolves game. Well, the Chicago Wolves found out about what happened, and they not only are they allowing me to have a table there for Military Appreciation Night and have my book offered up to people who would like to purchase it. They also are allowing me to speak to the stadium to talk about mental health and the importance of getting help. So it's very humbling that I get to do that and that people want to listen.
That is amazing, man. That is truly, truly amazing. I think it's there's amazing on three different levels, right? There's amazing on the soldier level where you're able to confront that shit and you're able to voice it to your child, which is probably the hardest thing that almost every veteran has to do, right? If they have any issues, voicing it to your wife or children is the hardest thing in the world to do. Second, um having like just in and of itself to humanity, let alone being a veteran, the stigma behind all this stuff, which everyone's trying to break, that's not my goal here necessarily, but I do enjoy like breaking that. And I think you're doing that by, bringing these issues frontward and saying, this is what the truth is. We need to address this stuff. And I think on a spiritual, not a spirit, I don't know if it's spiritual or what, but like a act of love, right? Like you making that book, that is you making something because you truly believe it will help your life and because you love doing it for your son, because you love him and you want to make his life better. You're not doing it to make money. You're not doing it to impress anybody. You're doing it because you care about your child and you want him to understand what you're going through. Those three, man, are awe-inspiring and what the world fucking needs right now. So I applaud you for that. It's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
And after I did it, I was talking to the clinical directors at Rush University Medical Center at Road Home program, and I told them, they were like, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "You know what? I would like to. I'm going to age up the characters, talk about traumatic brain injury, talking about survivor's guilt, talking about how certain times of the year affect us, as military. Because I'll get moody and then I'll look at the calendar and be like, that's why, that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
And just talk about different things that affect me, which you know is crazy that I'm not alone, and that's nice to feel that I'm not alone, to get all this feedback from other service members saying thank you. This is exactly how I felt, this is exactly what I'm going through. If anything, it's helped me. It's cathartic to feel like you're not alone is a great feeling.
For
And
sure.
you know so I'm making one right now from the female perspective. I'm the commander of the VFW near me, and my adjutant, she did 20 years in the Air Force, and she has a tween daughter, and she's going through a lot. And so we're making a book for her, and then I'm aging up the characters and making a series of books, and hopefully one day I can water down my trauma less and less and less. And one day I'll be able to maybe talk to my son about everything that happened when he's older. And that's the goal, man.
Well, that's awesome, man. And you keep doing that. And, I'm going to put the link to that as well in the bio. I'll have it
Thank
to
you.
like I know it's on Amazon, right? I think the link
Yeah,
goes
it's
to
on
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll have that down there just in case. Even if you're not going to buy it, right? I encourage people to buy it. But if you're not, at least take a look at this incredible effort that Mathius has done. Um, Mathius, you have set like a legacy, man, for like veterans, man. I don't think every veteran's gonna is capable of what you're doing, but the ones that can impact change should do it the way you're doing it, man, by personal and like professional actions. You're doing this stuff for your kid as well as like those intentions and then your intentions through your job and stuff, man. It's awesome. I went into this
Yeah.
interview, I didn't know much about you, man, and it's taken me away, learning about you. So I
You
appreciate
want
it.
to hear a crazy story real quick?
Yeah, man.
So this book came out at the end of November. At the end of December, I had a heart attack. I almost died. So I was at the gym and I started working out again. I was trying to get healthy, and cholesterol, all that stuff's within range. There, I shouldn't have had a heart attack, but I went swimming and I went to the sauna, and they think something broke off in my artery in the sauna. and I'm driving home and I had chest pains, and then it felt like someone hit me in the jaw,
Oh
and
wow.
I ended up I was about to drive to the VA, and that same voice that saved me numerous times in Iraq told me not to. They said, my voice said, you're going to die if you drive to the VA. Not because the VA is not a good organization, but because it was an hour away.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I drove 6 minutes to the ER, and as soon as I pulled up there, that's when it felt like I had daggers in my chest, and the elephant was sitting on my chest, and all that. That talking about one of the hardest things to do is talk about your family about stuff. The hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life was send a text to my ex-wife, um, telling her that I'm having a heart attack. If I don't if I don't make it, tell my son I love him.
Oh my
Like, that
lord.
was rough. That was the hardest
I'm
thing I've had to
sure.
do so far. And so what's crazy, and the reason I like to bring this up when we're talking about mental health and things like that, is I think we all know somebody that unfortunately their demons, um, I guess, won and they took their own life. They lost the battle. And I learned a long time ago from my therapist that what he told me is that people don't actually want to take their own life. Nobody actually wants to kill themselves. They want however they're feeling to stop, or whatever they're going through to end. And if you were to take somebody that wanted to take their own life and throw them in an ocean, like if you were on a boat and you threw the person overboard, guaranteed they would fight for their life. Nobody would just put their
Yeah.
arms down and just sink. So it's instinctually you don't want to die. Like you're sick of living the way you're living, and that you know when I almost died for about 10-15 minutes, it was the worst pain of my life. And it's the only time in my life besides being in Iraq that I almost died, and it was my own body. So it's a little different than getting shot at or bombs or
Oh,
whatever.
I'm sure. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, man.
so the whole time, and I mean, I struggle just like anyone else with ideations. I've been in very, very dark places, and I've gotten out of them. And there were times that I was questioning if it would be easier if I wasn't around. And when when I almost died, I was like, you know what? I'm doing good things. Like, give me some more time. And I was praying, and I was like, I just need a little more time. And if anything, I'm grateful that this experience happened, because there was a long stretch of time in my life up until probably when I had the heart attack where I really didn't care about myself too much, man. Like I said, the mindfulness part, like I cared about everyone else, but really didn't care about myself. And now I understand why they say, when the oxygen mask comes down in a plane, you put the mask on yourself first. You have to take care of yourself first, mentally, physically. You have to take care of yourself before you're able to help others.
100%.
And so that's what I've been doing, man. I'm on that journey of getting healthy. I'm on that journey of getting healthy, either with my body and my mind, and I want to be around for my kid, and I want to continue helping others, and that's my path now, man. That's my passion in life. But yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy handful of months, man.
It sounds like it, man. But I love it. I love that you're doing all that stuff. Um, all right. So I got three questions. We'll close it out with that. Number one, advice for people joining, right? New soldiers, enlistees, whatever, What advice for them do you have that, like, this is the good part of the army?
Yeah. Um, my advice would be, and it's a little easier now. One of my friend's daughters just graduated from basic training, and I'm super proud of her. But the military is different, and I know every generation says that, the military changes or whatever, and it has to adapt, right? That's what we were taught, to adapt and overcome. But you know, um, just keeping contacts, like that was the hardest thing for me, and trying to find people now on social media when they have generic names, like like John Miller, like
Yeah.
you can't find him on social
Yeah.
media,
I had a
stuff
platoon
like that.
sergeant named John James. That's a hard as hell to find.
Yeah, yeah, same. Yeah, like just Andre Green was one of my best friends at basic training. I can't find him. He's a basketball player. Like there's an Andre Green basketball player, I
Yeah.
can't find a lot of these people. So I would say, some of my best friends are people that I will never see again. And
Yeah.
it's weird to say that, you know?
No, I had, dude, I relate to it 100%. I had some amazing gents I worked with for 3 years, and I haven't seen maybe two of them or three of them in the past, 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, I 100% agree with you.
But that's what I would do. Definitely, I would save your money, save your money, and
Yeah.
make sure you keep your connections and keep your friendships, and that's probably the best things that I could say about the military.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would do it over again. And that's the nicest thing that I got to be on some panels when I got back from Iraq, and because we were some of the first back, and I was on a
Hmm.
panel at a college, and somebody asked, you know, there was a World War II veteran, a Korean War veteran, some Vietnam vets, and I was the only one from Iraq. And they said, knowing all the stuff that you guys gone through, all the pain you guys have gone through, all the issues you guys have, would you do it again? Every single one of us raised our
Yeah,
hands.
you know why? Because people
That
don't understand how the military works. They don't get it, man. And I'm not trying to like degrade people outside of it. They will never, ever understand the camaraderie that goes amongst military people. You ever watch, or not watch, you ever read the book Tribe by Sebastian Younger?
no,
He discuss it's a really good book. It's a very short read. It's like 110 pages. He
okay,
discusses how he was a journalist basically and he embedded it with military a lot, but he also looked at old studies of hunter gatherer tribes. And he basically talks about how, you know, military is basically the only group left that has that very close knit, close living, day to day operations that basically create what's called a tribe, that action. And it creates these emotional bonds among people that, like, it's very not like unfounded in most other organizations now or even communities. Um, I get you, man. People are people won't understand. That's fine, but yeah, that bond that you get and the feeling that you get with people that close, you'll never get it anywhere else.
100%.
My last question. I like to have a fun one on the end. Most motivational movie for you, like that gets you going. Usually, a lot of people say military movies. I don't even care. Like, uh, just like the motivational movie for you.
Oh man, it's kind of funny because it has to do with the military. Just because not a military movie, but my first duty station, I had nothing. You know, I'm 18 years old. I'm in Germany. I don't know anybody. It was really my first taste of how, like a foreshadowing, if you will, of my military career was that first handful of days. You know, I got there on a 3-day weekend. My first sergeant walked me around, knocked on doors until somebody finally answered, and then he was like, "Take him." Take this private to go get some beer and then enjoy your weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday. You know, 18-year-old got a case of beer, you know, they
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
bring a rations card and all that stuff. And I sat there and then when everyone came in, I woke up and people were sitting on my dresser. They were like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And they were drinking and
Yeah.
everyone's having a good time. There, one person's like, "Hey, I've got an extra TV." Somebody gave me a TV. Someone's like, "I got him a DVD player." Like just everybody came together and made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Hell yeah.
And that was amazing. So to answer your question, I only had 5 movies for the longest time, and it was the Rocky collection.
Oh
And
yeah. Dude,
you know, Rocky 3 when he's fighting Clubber Lang and all that stuff. That was my jam, man. I could watch that every single day, just
yeah.
because he
He's
was
getting
kind of,
angry.
yeah, you know, he's you know, he was at that pinnacle. You know, he kind of boastful and he was kind of full of himself and he thought he could never get down from his pillar, you know. And then he got knocked down and then he had to figure out how to change everything in order to get back up there. And I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great, you know,
Dude,
Rocky is a very good series.
I don't know if I've said it on the podcast yet, but my favorite motivational movie is Rocky 4, man. Only Rocky 4 because when I was in high school, our basketball coach would play the freaking training montage before we would go lift weights. Coach Genoa, shout out, but he would be like, "You guys want to get going to the gym? Here's how you do it." And then, this is like 20 or like 2009 or something, 2008, and he's just like plays like I don't even know how he did it because it was on like a VCR or DVD player still, but he would just have it right on the scene where it shows like Rocky running in the snow and stuff, and the Russian with like hooked up to stuff. It's so
Oh yeah,
cheesy, but you're just like, yeah, USA, I'm gonna get huge now. But
that's awesome
I love the Rocky movies, man. They're good. I don't care what anyone says. They're just awesome, and they get you going.
for
Uh,
sure.
um, Matthias, this was a pleasure, man. Not even like a pleasure. This was an honor because your book and your program are just outstanding, and that's what we need in the military community right now is more direct programs like that hyper focus, and these your book that's gonna, you may not know it now, but down the line it is going to influence and help children of military veterans. um, it's a great deal, man. um,
Thank you.
yeah, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking to me, especially like
Of-
for the listeners out there. Me and Matthias really didn't have a like, kind of just reached out and I reached out and it worked back and forth and we were able to make this work. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank
coming
you.
on.
Yeah, of course, thank you very much. And if anyone needs any more information or want to get involved or connected to my organization, it's Road Home Program, all one word, no spaces, .org, or it's 312-942-8387. It's 312-942 vets. And I think the best takeaway for that organization, if anybody just wanted to listen to one thing that has to do with Road Home Program, we help active duty service members, we help any era. So even if it's a Korean War vet, if somebody can think of somebody in their life that's struggling, we can help them, or any discharge status. So that's the biggest one. Even if the VA can't help, we can help.
I,
But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthias. I will also, for everything, I'm going to put the Road Home program, your book, the hotline, and everything. I will, and your phone number for Road Home program. I will put that all in the bio underneath. Yeah, man. Thank you. Take care. I really appreciate you coming on. Okay.
Of course, thank you for everything you do for service members coming in. They need that good leadership.
Thank you so much, man. Everybody, thank you for listening. Tune back in another time. You're on Why We Serve with Benjamin Lake.